We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. Tonight, we are playing Momentum. This is a D&D 5e campaign that is set in a homebrew world. This campaign is called Whispers and Fragments. And tonight, we're going to be playing session number 7, which is titled Unanswered Prayers. And I've been having a lot of fun with this campaign. This is a new world that I've been kind of working on over the past probably year or so, give or take. And these guys are doing a phenomenal job at helping me kind of carve out the particular niche that we've been kind of poking at in this campaign. And I can't wait to carve out yet another chapter. So before that, this is an adult game. These are all adults. This is an adult channel. If adult language and adult mature topics are things that bother you, then be an adult and go somewhere else, because this is not the game for you to watch. I think that about covers it. So I'm going to throw it over to my players so that they can do their introductions, plug their channels, etc., and then we'll get this ball rolling. Hopefully, Alan will be able to join us just in time. So first up, we have Jake.
I knew you were going to call on me as soon as I took a drink. Hey, internets, I'm Jake for Mini Terrain Domain. I run the Twitch and YouTube channels, Mini Terrain Domain, where there's some crafting on the YouTube channel. There's some live crafting over on Twitch, but we run currently 3 D&D live streams every week, Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. And Thursday's game, particularly tomorrow's game, is featuring tonight's DM. Jeremy is one of the players in that what we call Dawnbringers Season 2, The Forge of Fury. It is our season finale tomorrow. We will have one bonus episode that's going to be kind of a downtime episode before we take a break. But yeah, that's what I do.
And you do it well, sir, I would have to say. All right. Next up, we have Austin.
I'm Austin. I don't craft anything. I don't make any videos. And if you want to see me run a game, you'll have to figure out where I live and when I'm running a game for my friends. Please don't. Not that anyone would. Yeah, I'm playing Barterdom, and I'm excited to get back into this. The world of Momentum is exciting and pretty dangerous and a little emotionally traumatizing, and I kind of love it. We get to go deep.
Glutton for punishment. I like it. And that's very, very good, because there's probably more to come. All right. Next up, we have Lloyd.
Hello. I'm Lloyd. I run the channel YaldM, where you can watch me run currently Star Wars and Game of Thrones every week or so-ish. Really depends on a lot of factors, mostly the schedule flip, which is hellish. I'm really excited to be back in this game. I play Ingvrad, who is Bastard's sister-in-law and sort of the mother of the group. And I'm looking forward to giving out to everyone for the duration of the game.
Yeah, and I hope that you don't run Star Wars and Game of Thrones together. I mean, that could be neat, maybe.
That science going too far.
I didn't figure that Lloyd was down for the genre smash.
Isn't that just Dune?
Yeah.
It's so true. All right. Jeff, you're up.
Oh, mic was muted. Did the old double mute. It gets you every time. Yes, I'm Jeff. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Balance, where I run my own games. Right now, I'm running a campaign called Embers of Light, which is featuring Lloyd as well as some other great players. The next session of that's happening this Saturday, I think. So tune in if that's something that's interesting to you. And yeah, I'm playing Darian. He is a former smuggler, general rogue, and druggie, now trying to reform himself into something better. so far with varying degrees of success and happiness, but perhaps we'll see where that all goes. He's currently in the process of being proselytized to by our party mother, Ingvarad, so we'll see as well if that takes hold anywhere or not. But yeah, looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
There may be some need for prayer. We'll have to see. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started unless anybody has any questions.
I forgot to mention I'm playing Katya Kybrick, a Delver dwarf who has a bit of a problem with a dark shadow companion.
Like you do. It happens. Cool. Hopefully Alan can get his computer situated. He was having some issues with his power supply, it sounded like, and hopefully he gets that under control here. If not, I just hope that he's safe. Okay, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. You think eventually I would get used to just bringing up the picture before I say let's get started, but well, it hasn't happened yet. Okay. Faith cannot exist without the presence of doubt. As the flame of a candle can only illuminate that which is in darkness, so too faith can only bring comfort to the believer who understands doubt. But faith is tenuous if not tended, and a strong enough wind can snuff it out, bring the deepest darkness yet to bear. Belorion has fallen, his city and his remains cast to the ground. Now, too, the sun has set. The whispers of Belorion's spirit and guidance abandoning our world now spread upon such a wind. There are those who say that the Colossiahs have forsaken momentum, that this has doomed us all. How many candles have now lost the flame of faith? The owls had finally departed, either beaten into submission or to death. The five of you still huddle within the broken second-story corner of what used to be some kind of tailor's shop that sold clothing, all of which now is tossed into bundles and piles against the wall in the corner. Several of you in this fight were injured, and we are rejoining the party immediately after this combat has finished. So, what are we seeing right now? What's going on?
Ingvarad is chanting a prayer of healing, going from person to person, and with the small hammer that she has around her neck on the necklace. She would come to each of them and incant certain words, and then where the wound is, sort of pretend to strike with the tiny hammer, and go around to each one of them. It'll last a couple of minutes, maybe 10 minutes or so. She'll continue incanting those prayers, and hope that the magic will come.
Basterat is with Vidaris, just trying to comfort her, making sure that she's not harmed and trying to tend to any wounds that she might have, just trying to be particularly careful and attentive. You know what? She didn't. I'm blanking out on that. I thought she was here. She's totally not. Never mind. Spacey. Sorry.
Nope, no big deal. I was trying to remember. I was like, I don't remember if she came or not. I'm totally cool with it either way. But
No, yeah, she did not. We decided to keep her safe back in town.
could be a good idea.
Darian is going around from where they had made camp and trying to make sure that none of their like important supplies were damaged or like scattered in the combat. Just regathering the bags and resetting different things where they were and making sure that they didn't lose anything important, that their food didn't get kicked over the edge or something like that. While he's doing so, he'll like for the first time actually listen to the words that Ingvarad is saying rather than just kind of like letting the intoning chant just kind of fall over in the background. He can't help but kind of tilt his ear to listen to like the actual words, even if I don't know if it's even in common in English or not. But he wouldn't care if he'd try to kind of like identify the speech in a little bit. It piqued his curiosity at this stage.
It's probably the language of the Bonekin, or maybe something older even, that she would have learned in the temple, and maybe that Bastard can like speak in the way that like you can kind of speak a little bit of Latin when you learn it, but it's probably like not a active language. I would say it's probably dead, used only for magic.
I'm moving around as Ingvarad is kind of moving from person to person, bleeding profusely from a couple of pretty vicious talon wounds from these eagles, or not eagles, owls. Maybe a chunk of flesh from my arm is ripped out from one of their beaks. In pretty bad shape, but moving deliberately in a way that's almost, as you circle around the room, Ingvarad, realizing, maybe mechanically it doesn't move me out of the range. I'm moving, staying almost opposite you, but it's not a deliberate action. I'm not like watching you and trying to stay out of your healing touch. As I'm moving around, I'm muttering to myself, everybody's always getting hurt. Everybody is, we're going to die. I need more power. This little bit you have given me, it's letting me do things, but it is not enough. I need more power to protect them. I need more power to keep us alive. And it just kind of goes on like that, almost like a one-sided negotiation.
Are you remaining here for the rest of the evening? Try to get more sleep?
I'd say it's probably not a bad idea. Like if those owls know not to come here, they were chased off enough. And I think it's unlikely anything else might come. Although we did make a lot of noise, so it might have attracted some of those carnage hounds.
Yeah, that is possible. You also know that because you're on the second story, anything that is ground-based would have to come up basically a narrow staircase to the singular door. So while it's possible something could come looking for you, there is at least it's a defendable position, if nothing else.
What is the staircase made out of?
It's an interior staircase. So probably wood, I would think.
Okay. Bastrad will head down the staircase and see if it's possible to like pry up enough of the steps, like going, from up top, like prying the lower steps going on up to make it impassable, like make it so that something that can't jump up the whole flight of stairs could get up. He'll spend some time if he needs to. He's already all healed up and.
Sure. And I mean, in the crash of the city, I would imagine everything was kind of jostled anyways. So it's not difficult to break these or even find a piece of rubble that you can use to, help kind of smash them. So you're doing several of them just at the base of the staircase?
If it seems pretty easy to do, he'll pretty much take out like most of the staircase, because we can always kind of rope our way down or hop down or something like that.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So you kind of drift back off to sleep after a while, whenever everything is calmed back down. You probably set a watch again, but the rest of the night passes uneventfully. At least the time of a night passes uneventfully. As when you rouse, it is still the long night. It is still dark. The moon and stars still are the only thing that really lights the city. Though in some of the recesses, the dark ether fire does tend to light things a little bit from underneath, giving it an eerie look. It does qualify as a long rest, yes. So as you know that you have spent enough time sleeping, what's the plan?
I don't like this waking up without the sun. How do we even know it's morning? Hello?
Are you still tired?
After last night, yes.
Then it may not be morning yet.
But I ache. The ache of having worked the night before.
That doesn't go away day or night, so
No.
you better get used to that.
It is like working in the down under, mining the metals every day, working the pickaxes and whatnot, the pulleys and the ropes, except this time it is working weapons and getting worked over.
Either way, we'll just have to keep working. Time doesn't matter anymore, at least not in the night. Day, night, how long till morning, how long till whatever. Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired. Figure it out. That's really all we can do.
Bastrad just grunts in agreement.
That's not... that's actually... That's a lifestyle I could get behind.
It's not so bad once you get used to it.
All higher beings crave structure. We should try and keep time. Good for the mind and the soul. And with no answer from them, she makes the assumption that these are, in fact, not higher beings, and she'll kind of nod to herself.
I don't know, there's something about the chaos that feels more right than order sometimes. And maybe that's just my lesser being corrupting my mind.
If you can understand the gods, then you are not a lesser being. If you can, you're not. I think it's wise if we can try and keep some structure. I think it will be good for us, for our minds. Otherwise, we're living like animals.
At the very least, tactically, it might be useful. Trying to find ways to meet up and structure meetings or coordinate watches, whatever, all that sort of stuff. A little difficult to do when there's no way to tell.
We can't let
Higher
it all.
beings in service of the gods or not, it's useful if we can manage it.
Then we
I
should
don't
keep
think-
count. Every hour, someone says something. Roughly. She sort of shrugs, not knowing how they're going to know when an hour happens, but knowing that you can kind of guesstimate. I'll count.
That sounds monotonous.
I've lost my number. 1.
What are you counting?
And where are we starting from?
Now!
But what
Okay.
are you counting? Minutes? Hours?
Seconds.
You're going to count every second.
She is kind of embarrassed at like what she thought was a pretty reasonable, and like for her is probably possible because she has a very structured sort of mind. But the constant like backtalk is making her think it's a bad idea. Let's just shake her head. Live in chaos like animals, then.
I mean, maybe if we could just sit here and meditate and count for all eternity, it might not be so difficult. But the moment one of those things just like point out under the horizon, like implying some terrible monster comes to get us, whatever seconds you got going in your head are going to go right out the window when a sword or a fang is coming at you.
I have it.
Well, I've rather well trained myself for 3 meals a day, and I get hungry at fairly specific times. I think I know when it's time for breakfast.
I have it. I know how. And she'll like cast light on her hammer. It will last an hour. And in an hour it will go dark, and we will know an hour has passed.
And everybody in everything in this area will know that we have passed.
Yes, but it's dark, Katya. How will we know where we're going?
I sometimes forget I am the only one who can. Well, I'm not the only one, am I? I forget. I know Darian can't see in the dark.
Else probably
Yes.
can.
It's pretty much just dwarves in Momentum.
Okay. So, I forget that I'm the only one who can see in the dark. Good. That means you all can't see me while I make water. That is my internal clock.
It does seem like it's about breakfast time, by the way. If we need a place to start our count.
It's a good idea.
Are you simply doing trail rations?
Yeah.
Have time, Ingvar would want to like make something proper. She intends to like do this and make sure that we're like eating properly, and she knows people go mental if you don't. Like people will go insane if you like don't keep some sort of structure and ritual and like little things when it's dark all the time, like eating proper food. She thinks will like go a long way to helping everyone feel better. So if we have time and if no one's like rushing insanely, she would like start a fire and cook some things and whatnot.
Did we kill one of those owls?
Yes, you killed a few of them.
Yeah, can we like harvest some meat from that and fry it up?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I mean,
fresh
one
chicken.
of you would have to, kind of brave where one of them fell, but it's not that far. It was only a few yards or so from the building that you're in.
Yeah,
Um,
we can
Yeah,
lower a rope down, go down and grab some.
absolutely. And they're big enough that like you could probably like take a piece, like the legs or something, and then be back here pretty quickly so that you're not, left out there exposed for too long. So, okay. So you have yourself some owl steaks. I don't know. Owl bacon of some kind.
I'll take some of the herbs that I burn for incense can also double as a quick breakfast seasoning, and I'll use some of that just to make it a little bit less, painfully bland.
When
Absolutely.
we're getting the owl bits, I think Ingrad would go and with Bastrad, we would drag the remaining carcass further away from us and pull off bits and throw it further still, so that if scavengers come, that they'll go there and we'll see them before they're on top of us, kind of thing.
And you can hear other things, tearing at the bits that you kind of threw out away while you're kind of, butchering these legs and cooking some of it up. It's probably also some dried fruit that you could, somewhat rehydrate, things of that nature. So you have yourself a very filling breakfast. You're able to, find a shield or something that you can lay on the ground to build your fire in inside this building, or maybe even just in a fireplace itself. So yeah, you finish your meal and you're able to break camp. So, knowing that the Colossiahs' final resting place is still at least another day's walk ahead through the city, what's the plan?
Get walking.
We should keep moving. Yes.
All right. You collect your gear and you press on. You take care to wander where you're not going to cause too much noise. You're careful about picking your path occasionally. And there's whole swaths of the city that almost look untouched. Many of the tiled streets or courtyards that you come across are skewed at slight angles this way or that. And where those angles change, these tiles and the bedrock beneath them is shorn and cracked. Most of the gaps you come to are easy enough to at least just hop over, but it does make the going difficult and sometimes slow. Occasionally, as you move deeper into the city, especially, and you pass through the more opulent areas of Belorion, you'll see columns that are broken and toppled over. Some of them you have to climb over. In one point, there's a statue that is completely fallen off of its pedestal and is laying face first on the ground, its wings shattered. Of course, there are bodies as well. Almost everywhere you look, elves are scattered this way and that, broken, and now quite decayed. As you're making your way through, you can see many of the same symbols and wards that you saw in the Barterdom just prior to the sun setting. But these have been hastily painted onto buildings, doorways, and the clothing, and looks like maybe at one time even the foreheads of a lot of the people you see here. What are your thoughts? What's going through your heads as you're picking your way through this graveyard?
For Ingvad, it's like the sheer amount of time that's been lost with so many dead elves, like thousands and thousands of years of memories and history that's gone. Like, it's bad when a person dies or a bonekin dies. That's like a tragedy. But an elf is like this thing that lives 10 times as long and experiences so much more. And that so many of them are no longer here is like a huge loss to the entire world. And she like feels that on like a spiritual level.
Bastarad keeps getting these faint glimpses in these rotting elven faces of Kalp. Even though he wasn't too affectionate to the elf in life, he felt a connection to him just as one of his traveling companions, and he sees a few of these elves, just their structure reminds him, and it makes him think of sort of what Ingrad's thinking, is just about the knowledge that the Kalp had and him being lost, and then kind of realizing how many of these elves may have had the same potential for wisdom. It seems to he gets pretty quiet and is just looking at all these faces, sort of remembering the time he spent with his elven companion.
I imagine, Ingvarad, you're still keeping time with your hammer light.
Yeah.
So I'm one, I think, because of the dark vision, and two, just this, again, almost subconscious desire to stay out of the light. I'm at that edge, kind of in the shadowy of where the dim light meets the shadow, so that I can see a little bit further than the rest of you. As I'm wandering amongst the dead, if anybody happens to catch me, I'm almost careless in my wandering around. Partially not just that carelessness of youth and a little bit of callousness towards death. I think having seen sudden death in the Down Under, but also trying to stay in the shadow so that, in particular, Ingvarad, but nobody else can see that I'm looking over all of the bodies, looking for any. I'm not really looking to like loot them per se, but I'm just looking for any signs of better weaponry. But I'm trying not to, I'm not like stooping down and like patting the bodies down, but if a body's, like face down with a hand underneath, I might nudge them over a little bit, just lift them enough to see if they're concealing something. But I'm not looking at any of their.
Uh-oh. Did you freeze up for anybody else?
Yeah, I was just about to.
I thought it was me.
Yep.
Yep. He's not looking at their.
There he goes. You're not looking at their what, Jake?
Oh, that's weird. I'm like, wow, nobody's responding to that at all. I literally said one more word and it was faces.
There you go. I figured that's probably what you were going to say.
That's where I thought you were going, but
Sorry, I've got a weird glitch in my internet. It'll cut me for like 3 seconds.
So a lot of the people here are merely citizens. So you might find the odd like hip dagger, things like that. But you do come across several elven soldiers. They have mostly spears or longswords. and you find no shortage of them around. None of them look to be like remarkable, but they are well crafted, for being elven, especially.
I'm specifically looking for brimstone weapons.
Gotcha. Those you have not found, beyond the one that you spotted on that ship.
Yeah, I still think about the case with that brimstone weapon going overboard. And then I feel ashamed thinking about it because I let it go to save Ingvarad. I don't voice any of that, but I think it.
Elves want to, like, their ideal afterlife is to become nothing, right, and go up to somewhere else.
Yeah, they believe that they will become incorporeal and ascend.
Right. So they don't have what I know about like their burial rites or anything like that. Do they have any, or is it like do they get burnt?
They typically do sky burials, where they build like a stand, for them to decompose on.
Okay.
Similar to like Mongolians or some of the Native American tribes, Tibetans and stuff. But I mean, burning is also, it can be done in a pinch, if you will.
So this is not like, because they will decompose here, and they are in some ways like in the best place, not necessarily like a terrible place for them to be unburied.
No, I would say not. At least as far as Ingvarad's understanding of the like the elven rites would go, I would say that's within a realm of understanding.
Okay, and then further from that, the taking of things from here, because they want to vanish, it's not like a Valhalla situation where the stuff you have goes with you. I'm just trying to like legally figure out how Ingvarad would feel if she saw someone's like looting the dead, because she's not seeing Katja, but I'm just trying to figure that out.
Sure. Yeah, before it happens. It's probably a tricky thing. Because of what happened in this city, it was so tragic and so fast. But I think that most elves would have a healthy understanding of you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That being the case, then Ingvarad will be on the lookout for something beautiful that's been forged or made. Not like necessarily something powerful, just something that's beautiful and that's like sort of characterful of this place.
Oh, yeah, I would say easily you could find probably a beautifully worked lantern. You know, it's made out of brass or something, and it's all like filigreed, like the elven stuff is, where it's got a lot of swirls and things to it.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that she's looking for. Something that like is impressive in terms of like the way that it's been made and like beyond her skill to make. Something like that she would like take and sort of treasure as a reminder of this place.
Absolutely. And what the hell, we'll even say it's actually kind of like an Asian style lantern. So it's actually on an end of a pole where it's got like a hook that it kind of hangs from.
Rad. So then what she might do then is like attach that into her bag and cast light on that instead of her hammer as we go.
Perfect.
So as Haroon moves to the city, he stumbles upon, or he like the others, he's kind of just looking over the different bodies, just kind of taking in the tragedy that had befallen here. Leaning down, he kind of moves some rubble aside as he takes notice of this small trinket. And as he takes hold of it, it's a small wooden carved child's toy, elven make. So much of our history, our traditions, much like this world, have passed. We dwell too much on the past. The elves, much like this world, are dying, and we cling to the remnants of our history. And yet, too many of my people are not looking in the here and the now to adapt to our future. And he walks over to Katja. Here, little one. Perhaps this will serve you better. And hands her the small wooden carved toy.
I'm speechless. Just surprised at this sudden thing. Thanks. What is this toy?
I'd say it's probably like a little carved airship.
If it's an airship, then there is a certain, I mean, I'm not that far off from childhood, young even for a dwarf. There's that almost very childish gleam in the eyes that breaks through, the hardness, at it being an airship.
Side chat gonna be side chat. All right.
So Darian will take a moment once he sees Ingvarad's got this like new lantern fixed up, that he'll walk up beside her and he'll speak quietly, like to make sure that his voice won't carry any louder than like the rubble that they're kicking around, digging through stuff and all that. But he'll kind of like lean in. Ingvarad, can I ask you something?
Of course.
Look, I know that I have a long way to go in terms of understanding all this God stuff. And there's a lot that I need to learn there. But there's one thing that I do know, and it's language, and talking, what we can use it for, what it's gotten me out of and into, and the power that it has. Words, what they can do. But my words have gotten me out of trouble, but they've never healed a stab wound. Your words have done that. And they're words that I don't know, words that I don't understand. Yet, for some reason, when you say them, I still feel something. If I've understood something some other way. Can you teach words like that? Could I learn what
It's not
they
the
mean?
word. It's not the words, Darian. It's the belief and the certainty. I could say anything, but it's my certainty in the gods and my acceptance that I have no power that causes them to grant me it. I can show you the words, but it's within you that has to understand it.
If the words don't matter, then why such complicated words? You
Tradition.
could say anything. There must be a purpose.
I don't pretend to understand it all. I was told to say these words, and Karast was told to say them, and his master was told to say them. Maybe once there was a lot of power in them, but I don't think that it's the words. Maybe it is. Not knowing and knowing that I don't know, I think, is why the gods bless me with power. It's only when you're nothing and you accept that, I think, that they will help you.
I think that there's more power in tradition than you give it credit for, at least by your words. But your actions, I think, say that you believe that just as much as I do. If you've been told to say them, maybe you can tell me to say them. Maybe it will do something, maybe it won't. If belief is the truth or the words are, I don't know. And I don't know what I believe anyways right now. But I think the more that I can understand it, the more I can figure it out. And if your words and your belief can do what I've seen it done, and I like look down to like where he had been like stabbed and clawed, where like now there's nothing, then I figure the least I can do is give it a chance to understand.
I can teach you the words, but you have to understand that I don't have any power, and neither will you. The gods have the power, and sometimes they deign to grant it. If you come at this thinking that you will gain the ability to do these things, you won't gain that ability.
I just want to understand. It's something I've never done before. Maybe it's worth a try.
Then I'll teach you. There are 14 grammatical cases in the, and she'll like begin explaining this like ancient, incredibly complex, difficult to pronounce language, and it will not stop explaining it now.
Darian will like legitimately try to understand, but it's, you know, any time you try to learn a language, there's always going to be a barrier as far as how much it can penetrate on the first go around. But to like try to pick up the absolute tiniest basics. Remember a word for the and for me or whatever, or the word for the gods, and just like call that a victory in this case. To learn like 3 or 4 words.
Bastrad is not participating in this, is kind of staying back, but he kind of witnesses this. And after Ingrid is kind of finished, he'll approach Darian and trying to be kind of conciliatory for his bad attitude earlier. He'll just say, if you would like a little bit of help learning, I have limited knowledge of the old language, but I might be able to help you at a slightly slower pace. And
You have bad habits, Basterad. You can't even roll the oars properly.
I think I do just fine, thank you. But I will concede you are clearly more skilled. But I think sometimes an expert has a hard time with a novice. Perhaps someone of a more intermediate skill could give him the basics so that, well, you understand, of course.
Yeah, she smiles and squeezes you on the shoulder. She's always been at you about this, like that you never really learned the language properly. Or like, I mean, you can speak it, but I feel like maybe colloquially. And there's like, in my mind, this is like really difficult as a language, and there's a lot of like strange sort of mouth things that happen with the way that you say certain letters, and like maybe you don't do those properly to the level that she thinks is necessary.
Oh yeah, he definitely doesn't have it right. Like he's not perfect. Like he knows like very basic level stuff. Like as it imagine, like for like a choir boy might know Latin.
Right. Yeah, but she's kind of laughing
Yeah.
and smiling. She says it. You know, it's not like a put down.
Yeah, Darian was kind of like nod along. I mean, I'll take all the help that I can get. I'm pretty sure I absorbed 2% of everything that Ingvarad just dumped on me, but we'll take it day by day.
Oh well, then you may know more than me by now.
I don't mean to pry, if I can ask, though. It's this language. I thought that you left all that behind. At least that was my understanding. If that's the case, why would you teach me?
I may not have the deep belief and reverence that Ingvarad has, but I wanted to. And he starts getting like kind of visibly frustrated at like being questioned for his kindness. He's like, I was trying to be nice. I wanted to try to help you. I just thought maybe it would be helpful for you to learn from someone who didn't speak so quickly. And
No, and I'll kind of like try to put put up a hand to stop the tide of words as if it will do anything, and then just kind of shake his head. I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. In fact, I genuinely appreciate the help. I just wanted to know. That's all. I take the help if you tell me, and if you don't, you can still help, and I'll appreciate the gesture of kindness a lot.
He kind of glances to Ingvarad to like hoping for some sort of sign or like calming look.
But if Garion will just go on anyways. But I figure if I'm gonna learn from her why I should learn all this, and if you're gonna teach me, then you surely have your own reasons for why I shouldn't, at least for why that you don't. Perhaps you don't believe, or perhaps you merely don't act. Sorry, I didn't mean to question you. It's perhaps beyond my place to ask. I'm just trying to understand all this, and if you have a different perspective than her, and clearly you do, that interests me just as much as the language itself, the words, the mechanics of belief. If I can learn the idea too.
We may differ in our understanding of what causes Ingvarad's healing to occur, but I cannot deny its truth and its efficacy. The origins may be a matter of dispute, and he'll kind of shoot a glance towards Ingvarad with that, but its existence is undeniable.
Darren will kind of like intentionally poke at the fire and poke the hornet's nest and say, well, dispute away then.
Haroon, not normally smiling, can't help but smile at this Ingvarad teaching her lesson, and he can't help but look at her occasionally, and then if she takes notice, he would kind of look down or look at the fire, and then once her lesson is done, he kind of mumbles over to her. It reminds me of our lessons so long ago that I was once, and he looks over at Darian, I was once the student as Darian was.
Yes, you were less mouthy, a better listener, less questions.
It was a different time.
You learned it. I'm certain that he can too. I just worry about motivations. You came at it from a selfless point of view and an understanding that power is not yours, it's the gods. I just wonder if he understands that. Maybe he'll come to.
If you were able to take one such as myself and teach me your ways, I have no doubt in your ways.
I think Bastrad might want to learn too. There's a sort of competitive element that I think is good and useful. Maybe we can bring him back onto the path.
Yes, I too have started to see the anger wane from his heart.
You wander on for the rest of the day, finding yet again another spot to camp in the night. You rest, though it's somewhat fitful, as there's a lot of things that make noise here. But rest you do. You break camp again, once more eating. And then you set back out. You find yourselves walking along, the bodies becoming increasingly denser. At some point, you kind of lapse into a silence. Darian, it's during this silence that you find yourself back at sea, looking out at the expanse of night, watching the black waves as they begin to roll as a storm closes in. In your hand, you look down and you see a vial of ether. Suddenly, beside you, the man who you were just robbing awakens. This is a sailor named Umbero. He opens his heavy-lidded eyes, leans over in his hammock, and spots you. What are you doing?
Darian will like slightly jump at the sudden startle, like confused. He thought that he was being careful, but sometimes, no matter how careful you are, that can still disrupt sleep, and sometimes it's not even you that does that. But he'll walk up and kind of put his hands up, and just trying to keep quiet to make sure that he doesn't wake anybody else.
He kind of
Sorry, it was
swings
just
heavy legs.
it's dark.
over the-
It was dark. I thought this was my. I'm sorry. I must have gone to the wrong spot.
What's that? You stealing my ether? What's the big idea? Would you sneak in and get some for yourself? I bought that with my hard-earned money. He kind of starts to close with you. He's a much bigger man than you are, Darian.
Yeah, seeing that he's been caught and that there's not much else to say, that he can't like talk his way out of being caught actually red-handed in this scenario. I just like look down and look back up. Look, don't do something that you're going to regret. I'll just be out.
Regret?
None of us have to talk about this anymore.
Oh, no. The only thing that I'm not going to regret is refraining from thumping a thief like you. Give it here.
Darian will like reach behind at his belt and like pull out the knife that he keeps hidden there and like bring it up towards the man's neck. Take
And
one
he had
more
like
step.
taken
and I'll get
a
you
step
with it.
forward. Stops as the blade touches his skin. Oh, I see. It's a right proper thieving then. Very well. He kind of relaxes. And that's when you spot his left hand reaching for a belaying pin that's kind of laying on a coil of rope nearby within reach.
Hey, stop that. No funny business. And I'll kind of like press the knife further against his skin and like kind of like look down at his own hand, like incredulously that he's like holding the ether. He like hardly even remembers going to take it. He's not like sure how he got here, but apparently he is. In this scenario, there's nothing more to like say or do other than to try to like keep this man quiet to make sure that he's not caught and like thrown overboard or kicked off or killed.
And when you look down towards his hand where he's grabbing for this belaying pin, he takes this momentary lapse in your attention with his other hand to reach out for the vial of ether and like closes his hand kind of partially around your fist and partially around this vial as well, and begins trying his best with all of his might in this one hand to try to wrest this from your grasp.
Darren will like find himself like not even meaning to, but it's more like he's like watching himself act rather than do it deliberately. He'll like snarl at the man and like try to pull his hand away and say, "No, it's mine. I need it," and like push the knife against him to the point where it'll like start to draw a bit of blood, kind of at the lower end of his collarbone.
You do so, wrestling this vial. The blood trickles down his kind of stubble-covered chin and neck. And as you push the blade, he winces and pulls the vial partway out of your hand. And in your effort to kind of grasp after it, you shift, and he shifts the wrong direction. And your knife plunges into the side of his neck. His eyes start to grow wide, and he starts to gurgle. He stabbed me.
Darren will like look and like watch the blood running as if his like incredulousness could somehow like force the blood to like return back into this man's neck like through inaction. And much to like his own disgust, the first thing that he'll do is pull the ether back out of the man's hand, now him being weakened by the cut wound, and will like grasp it and like pull it against his chest. But then seeing that this man like will die, definitely, or at the very least be so injured that this is going to become a problem, he'll just lean in with the knife and just twist it and pull it across his neck further to ensure that he dies now and can't yell.
His neck opens, steam escaping into the dark, cold air, and he staggers backwards towards the gunnel, kind of grasping up towards his bearded face, and the blood just running dark from between his fingers now, freely, still. He stops as he backs up against the gunnel.
Yeah, Darren will just kind of like begin looking down and just like shit. And kind of like look around as if his eyes could solve the situation on their own. And then once he'll like come to his senses, or at least whatever can be called his senses in this stage, if you can even use that word for it. He'll like take off like and like rip a part of his cloak and like put it against the wound so the blood doesn't like begin to spread, so it'll like soak into the scraps instead of like falling onto the floor. And we'll also like use it to like cover his mouth and like stuff a piece of it in so that like his gasps won't be as loud. And he'll just begin like pulling the man in his weakened state out during the night and under the cover of darkness and sleep, and try to pull him out of the cabin to the edge of the boat.
Yeah, you guys are actually on the deck of the ship, and he is currently up against the railing, the half wall that kind of runs along the length of the ship. You kind of move forward and stuff his mouth and cover his wound as best you can with this ripped piece of cloth. And he's starting to teeter. He's a large guy, but he's doing his best to flail against you, though it is weak at this point.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to, but if you didn't come in to bother me when I was doing this, this wouldn't have happened. So if any, it's just like he's just trying to say like anything to like justify his own actions, as if it's not his fault. And then just kind of like look down. I'm sorry, if they see you, it'll be the end. I can't. I'm not ready. They can't. And he'll just like look, and for a moment he'll like take a step back. But then like look back at the man and like at the aether vial, like still like clutched against his own chest, and then like in a desperate act, will just like lunge forward and push with both hands at the man's upper chest.
Kind of understanding what comes next, he's reached out towards you with one large hand covered with blood, this red palm kind of extended directly towards you, but it has no conviction, and you easily barrel past it and slam your weight into the top half of this bulky man, and he flips upside down over the gunnel, and a moment later splashes into the water.
Darian will just like look down incredulously, just like shaking his head, like he can't believe what's happened and like how quickly things have escalated to get to this point. Like scratch at his neck uncomfortably and nervously, and like bits of gray skin that have begun to like scale over will like fleck off and like begin to bleed. But to like fumble with the aether again, like ashamed that it's his first act, to like rip the cap off of it. That's covered the vial, and will like quickly inhale it before throwing the vial itself into the ocean as well. And then he'll like wait and sit there for like maybe like a full minute before he'll like let out a scream and like clean off the blood off of his chest and like throw the cloak into the water as well. And then once it's been far enough that they'll have passed the body, he'll scream, "Man overboard! I need help! He's fallen!"
And as you watch this body float and make a desperate attempt to swim amid these rolling black waves, you start to see other corpses' hands grasping at him and pulling him downward. But then the black waves of the sea slowly transition into hills of elven corpses as you find yourself back in the present and are now seeing hundreds, possibly even thousands of these elven bodies that seem to stretch onward for perhaps half a mile or more of hills and valleys, a veritable landscape that extends away between you and what you know to be the final resting place of the Colossiahs of this city. The god of light, known as Belorion. You can tell the closer that you get to this shroud, the bodies grow denser. These were the people of Belorion who came in their time of need to pray to their Colossiah to save them from this disaster. How are each of you responding to this?
Bastrad is, as he often is, just awed by the craftsmanship of this thing. Just the time and effort and work that must have gone into it. just stuns him for a moment. He seems to not even notice the bodies for that brief moment where he's just contemplating the structure itself.
Ingrid sees like a lot of need. Like all these people obviously needed Belorion, and maybe that's why he didn't help. He has to like find a way that this makes sense. And selfish and like greedy and motivations like that, like save me. Maybe he doesn't listen to those kind of prayers. So she would like look at the just like waves of dead people, and also just like at the god itself, and try and process how this happened and why he didn't help.
I think Haroon would take his warhammer and with the hammerhead down, set it on the ground, and it just kind of, with a heavy thud, hits the floor as he takes a knee and presses the handle of the hammer to his forehead and utters just a general prayer.
Darian will like subconsciously feel at that same spot on his neck. They had like scratched off in the memory, having just been recently so lost in it, and like feel where like now it's like scarred over, where he's like torn the pieces of scale away that had begun to form on him from the aether use that he'd gone through. Reminding himself vividly of so much of the pain that he's caused, and seeing all the bodies. He's like disconnected from it entirely. He's like never been here to this place. He knew none of these people, but like somehow being like lost in his own self and seeing all the bodies, he like can't help but feel responsible, not personally, but like as if it's like people like him who caused stuff like this to be the world. And then looking up at the form of the Colossiah, I can't help but contrast it with the words that Ingbrad had just been teaching him, the like tiny bits that he was able to pick up on day one. It's just like can almost see the two worlds of his life, like the barrier between them being like fraying the seas of bodies, and now like the statue of the god, this like strange duality that all humans have, this like simultaneously reach upwards into higher power and downwards into depravity, and like he's both of those things right now. He doesn't like know what to feel. Like he feels everything, nothing, all at the same time.
This is one of those situations where I don't necessarily pick up on the solemnity of the situation, the seriousness of it. I'm somebody who doesn't 100% believe in the Colossiah, though I'm told that I saw one in the Down Under, and whose name I use as an epithet often. So in this particular case, it's that sensing that everybody else has grown quiet. And I'm more looking at each of my companions' faces, trying to discern what it is that they're thinking. Why is it? I mean, don't get me wrong. This is impressive from my point of view, looking at this incredibly, just the sheer size of it, the artistry, everything about it. But it's more, I'm just focusing on how it's affecting my companions and not fully understanding it. And I think each time I look at somebody, I think the first person I look at is Ingvarad. And then I look at Barterdom, and then back to Ingvarad. And through each member, just trying to discern. And it's just like looking at something and you kind of get the appreciation of it, but you're just like, I don't know, maybe I'm not meant to understand this. I'm not feeling moved in the same way that everybody else appears to be, but I'm just maintaining a respectful quiet as I just scan everybody's faces and scan finally the surrounding area.
And Katya would definitely notice a shift in Bastard's face if she shifts back and forth from this initial look of awe and admiration to one of sort of disdain and disappointment as he looks longer at this statue of a Colossiah.
Bastrod, it's when your eyes shift from Belorion to the sea of corpses that spreads between you that you hear a voice in the back of your head whisper to you, lies. Just that single word.
These people all came here for protection. And what did their great God offer them? He just can't hold himself back as he looks over this crowd of dead in front of this gorgeous piece of work, and he starts to think about the time, but in a different way, as this wasted pursuit. Gorgeous art though it may have provided, it doesn't mean anything because it's all towards this pointless goal of praising something that is long dead or never existed in the first place.
Not this, not here. She'll say and shake her head. You do not know what the gods think or how they act, and neither do I, nor do any of us. There are reasons. But not in front of Belorion do we speak like this.
Stone. That's all that is. Finely crafted, yes. But look at these people. What protection did it offer? This God, if he's still here, why did he do nothing for these people?
I don't know the answer, and neither do you. None of us.
Belorion, can you hear me? Well, smite me if I'm wrong.
Enough, Bastard.
He kind of looks around at everyone's faces and realizes that no one has kind of said anything in agreement, or there's sort of probably looks of embarrassment, I assume, from others, and he'll kind of quiet down, grow a little red in the face, and and just kind of growls into silence.
I don't know much about the gods, what they do, don't. They exist or not. I won't claim to have any of that figured out. But nothing's ever just stone. It's always something more too. Maybe it is just finely crafted, a beautiful piece of architecture. But I don't know. Something about it can't help but feel reverent, whether it's for the gods or just for the beauty. Let's not shout, even if there's no one here to hear it or not. And I'll kind of point down at both the bodies and the statue. Not now.
I mean no disrespect to the dead.
You're showing it.
Darian, do you think there might actually be something inside the statue? I mean, you're not wrong. Stone is never just stone. I've spent enough of my time mining stone under the earth to know that there's always things inside. Is that what you're talking about?
Darian will like kind of look confused for a second, like that's not what he meant when he said like stone's not just stone, but at the same time, like it kind of makes sense. And I'll just kind of like shake his head confused and shrug. I don't know. Either way, it seems like the elves want the pieces, whether it's for vanity or for some use. Maybe there is something else physically in there.
Is this thing? I mean, would this be made of like the bones, Jeremy? Like the kind of thing that we use
So-
to craft?
Yes. So each city is founded usually within, amongst, or near a Colossiah's remains, whatever of that Colossia happens to still be around. And Belorion is one of the largest, and therefore he's viewed as one of the most powerful deities. But in order to protect the Colossia, a lot of times they have like a likeness that's kind of built around their bones out of stone and other things to kind of help protect them and hide them.
Okay, gotcha. Knowing that, I will not tell them that because I do not want to go in there and steal a bunch of bones from Belorion.
Isn't that like exactly what we're here to do? I thought that
Yeah.
was the point.
Yep. But now
I
that
was
we're
just going to
here,
say the same thing. Isn't that literally what we're supposed to
but
be
now that
doing?
we're here, I think there's just no way that Ingrid could like see this and think, okay, in we go to steal god bones. I just don't think it's like she can't. It doesn't make sense for her at all. I think So I think she just like realizes that and thinks for a few moments, and is like quietly seething at like Bastarad's blasphemy in front of like this actual literal god. And so yeah, she's just going to be sort of quiet for a while.
I think at this point, you see that flash of black ink across my eyes, and the black mist coalesces around my hand, and a war pick appears. And I take a step forward and I just say, so do we start at the toes or do we go up high? I mean, what exactly how are we supposed to tackle this thing?
Arun rises from his prayer position. We should tread lightly here. During the long night, the god of light is blind and deaf to our pleas. There are worse things that will dwell here now.
Haroon, it's as you are saying this, after you have opened your eyes from your prayer, you're looking around you, and the faces of some of these elves in these mounds on either side of you as they kind of rise up somewhat steeply away. Their faces you recognize. People you have killed. In your line of work, that's not a small number. But then when you blink or take a second look, you realize it's not the case. It's not the same people.
Yeah, in that moment, it would be as if, like the very air in his lungs was sucked out as he's kind of lost for breath. And he has that look of shock and panic in his face. And like light sweat beads on his brow before he comes back to. He's kind of heavy of breath. We will be tested here.
A sound not far off, atop of one of these hills, causes most of you to turn that direction as something tumbles down and hits the ground. That's kind of this valley between these mounds of bodies. And you realize that it's an elven helm. And you can tell, even from this distance, in this dim light, it looks like the head is still inside of it. The flesh at the neck looks as though it was stretched, pulled into tearing. There's long strips of it that dangle down away from the helmet. It spins like a half turn before it comes to a rest. You feel as if you're being watched. That is where we're going to take our break. So, 5-10 minutes, go to the bathroom, refill your drinks, get your spouse, smoke them if you got them, etc., etc. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in and watching this evening. And if you're watching in the future, thank you as well. You guys, these players are just absolutely nailing it so far. I love playing with these guys. Everything is ramped up and it's cranked up and the knob is yanked out. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here in the second half of this session. So stick around. We'll be right back and we'll finish this up. Hello, everybody. Said hopefully everybody's having a good week so far. Hopefully your June is kicked off well. We have AtCon later this month. And
I'm counting down the days at this
excited
point.
for that.
I'm so ready.
Get a chance to. Yeah, me too. Not only just for a vacation, but especially like that as a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. The good way to spend whatever 4 days or whatever it's going to be for me.
Yeah, I'm doing
listening to
5 days
the
this year.
playlist that I have for Momentum, but it's on a song for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Coming
nice.
in Thursday and leaving Monday, and I need it so bad. I'm so ready.
Likewise. But yeah, the song that's playing right now on the soundtrack is on the playlist is from the Last Kingdom soundtrack. If you're not watching the Last Kingdom, if you're not watching the Last Kingdom on Netflix and you like historical story drama, I can't recommend it enough.
So good.
I had someone else tell me, and usually we have similar taste, and they were like, well, I tried it and it was I just couldn't get into it. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's disappointing. So I didn't watch it for probably like the first season and a half. But then I was home by myself looking for something to watch. My wife and son were out of town or whatever, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch it. Like, I'll give it a try. And I was like,
It's great.
This is amazing.
The books are exceptional as well. So good.
Probably are.
I love the guy who plays Uhtred. I think he does the smug thing like incredibly well. Like he really does that sort of like Viking shit talk thing so well. It's great.
He's a really good actor. And it's funny because like at first I was like, he's such a pretty boy. And I was like, this is going to be such a bad performance. But he actually is probably one of the better actors out of the entire cast, which is saying something. So there's some amazing actors in that show.
Uhtred, he's supposed to be like gross and Viking-y, but he's really good, I think.
Yeah. Father Bianca is probably my favorite character.
So great.
Soundtrack is also very, very awesome. Highly recommend it.
I feel like the fight scenes are really good in that show.
Cool.
Like, they feel grim and real, you know?
Yeah, I would have to agree. And the violence is like it's gratuitous, but it's not as gratuitous as a lot of like HBO stuff gets.
Yep.
Where sometimes you're just like, "Ooh, that was probably too much." Like now you're reaching for ratings. Like I don't think the human body contains that much blood.
Yeah. Where is it, man?
Oh man. All right. Looks like we've got everybody back. Everyone ready to get back?
The last one back. Sorry about that. Oh, whoops.
Oh no, you're fine, dude. I don't think it's been 10 minutes yet, so cool. Well, if y'all are ready, then we will pick back up where we left off. Okay. You stand nearly half a mile away from this monolithic death shroud. But with the size of this thing, you might as well be standing at its feet already. There before you, not even his full height, Belorion sits in a chair, judging you. From a faceless gap beneath his cowl. The fires in the braziers you see on the bridges on either side of him have long since burned out. But the moonlight and starlight streaming in, as well as the light from Ingvarad's hammer, shows you enough detail to see the landscape of corpses that stretches out away from you. These literal hills and valleys of bodies that were tossed whenever this city collapsed to the ground. And now, an elven helm with its head still in it has toppled downward and come to rest mere yards away from where you're now standing. There's no question in any of your minds that you are being stalked.
If I enact my divine sense, I can sense anything out to 60 feet that would be a celestial fiend or undead that's not behind total cover. Would I sense anything?
You try to quiet your mind, your spirit, your soul, and then you reach outward, out of yourself. But you feel nothing out of place. Nothing that is spiritually compromised in such a way. Anyone who would like to can make perception rolls. You will be at disadvantage unless you have dark vision.
As I'm doing that, my whole body does that thing where the shadow seems to cover my entire body for a moment, and then it sort of absorbs it until I have this armor of shadows, this seeming almost like a translucent black smoke skin over my body. But as my vision turns to inky cloud, I can't see shit. Because where's my perception? Yeah, that was a 4.
Yeah, the sudden feeling of being watched and seeing like the head roll down will like stir Darian away from his like existential ponderings and like flip back in to that action mode and like immediately become wary. His hand like falling down next to his blade and his eyes begin moving around, trying to like see into darkness if such a thing is possible.
Look as you might, Darian, you see what you think could have been movement, perhaps, along the ridgeline, if you will, of one of these hills. However, Harun, whenever you look, you can see a creature that I don't think you've seen before. Somewhat of it's a 4-legged animal. In your mind as a player, it would look almost like a cross between a hyena and a bear.
Do I know this to
are
be
slinking along, and you see them.
I was just going to say, do I know
Go
this
ahead.
to be a pack animal, or would it be more like a bear and that it would most likely be alone?
Roll a nature.
Got a 9.
You aren't certain. You don't even know exactly what this animal is, much less much of its ecology. It would definitely strike you as a predator of some kind, though.
Yeah, I would just say, as he like brings his shield kind of like up in his hammer, we are being hunted.
Perhaps we should maybe turn into the hunters. And I will change the war pick. It just sort of, I shift it in my hands and almost flip it over or turn it sideways. And so the curve of the war pick becomes the curve of a heavy crossbow as I summon that as a new pact weapon.
Ingrid will invoke Belorion's light and cast Bless on. Let's go for Haroon and who wants it? Like I can only do 3. I'll definitely go for Haroon, and I'm going to go for Bastarad and for Darian. No offense, Katja. Yeah, and she'll make a deal of like invoking Belorion, making sure to like say the name, and then when the magic is felt, she wants it to be clear to Bastarad that there is something when you say this god's name.
You steel yourselves, gather together, and you realize that this lone predator is not alone. As you see more shapes begin to move along the hilltops around you, and a few of them in these valleys that lead away from this place where you find yourself now, this low spot. As far as you can tell, there seems to be about half a dozen of them. Those of you who have been out in the city before know what these creatures are, though they have not given their telltale howl. And they do not seem to be coming closer. They seem to be holding their ground around you and waiting. After a moment, you see a light shining a bluish glow, the color of ether, as a new figure mounts the hill nearest you. Its skeletal body shines from this light from within. It stops atop the hill and stares down at the collective of you. And in your mind, you hear this creature speak. Why have you come to our feast?
I look around to see if anybody else heard that.
Yeah, it's clear on Ingrad's face that she's hearing something.
He'll kind of, Bastrad will start to speak, kind of hesitate, look around at everyone else, see if anyone else is like on the edge of speaking, and they'll say, hey, we came to search for things of value to our kind. We mean no intrusion onto your space. The meat here is plentiful. We want no quarrel with you.
My pack wishes fresh meat. They stay now only because I have bade it so. Fresh meat is not agreeable with our kind. But I shall let them have it if you displease me. What gift do you bring to lay before me?
Ingrid is silent, thinking, are we really negotiating with an animal? Are we discussing and giving gifts to this thing that's clearly evil, maybe necromantic, certainly not something that we should be dealing with? She wants to destroy it, but Basrat has a thing going, and so she's not going to speak.
I got a gift for it. I say under my breath, just loud enough for whoever's next to me. I imagine it's Darian that I turn to, just kind of out of the side of my mouth. I've got a gift for it. Just kind of hefting the crossbow.
Darian will just kind of like nervously smirk with that look of like, I don't know if we should be like, yeah, let's stick it to this thing, or like, oh God, we're all gonna die. He doesn't know which way to root at this point.
Bastrad has just never encountered a speaking creature before, or like something that could speak in his mind, and that has him terrified on a whole new level. Just like angry at this thing for overcoming them, like for surrounding him so effectively without him noticing, but also just terrified of whatever it may be capable of. I'm wondering, does Bastrad, would he potentially know anything about like Carnage Hounds in general, or like what they might like, what might be a good offering for Carnage Hounds, even if this one is a weird, unique one?
I don't know. I mean, your interaction with them has been fairly limited thus far, but you know that they are carrion eaters typically. They don't. You've never seen one show a proclivity for like material possessions, but this one obviously is, like you said, outside of the norm.
Bastrad will reach into his bag and pull out a music box, because that is a thing that he has, and he's just kind of grasping at straws, trying to prevent a fight at this point, because he's worried about, you know, the situation that we're in with all of them so much higher above us and us kind of cornered into this area. And he'll wind up the music box, like walk forward a few feet, set it at the ground, and let it go and step back.
At first, when you reach for this, the Carnage Hounds around you all lower their faces and roll their skin on their muzzles back about halfway up the length of their skull, kind of bearing these glistening, curved fangs and emitting this kind of low
Take it back. Take it back.
but it only lasts a moment. As you see this more skeletal creature turn its head, first one direction and then the other, and they all fall quiet. This creature watches you lay this on the ground, and it starts to play music. He stalks down the mountain of corpses that he was atop, almost taking switchbacks. And he lands with a thud that you can feel, though he is little more than bone. He moves forward towards it with this sickening clatter as the bones of his feet and the sharp claws that he has on the ends of these fingers kind of scrape against the stone of the floor. And he gets close to this music box. And he steps on it, crushing it beneath the weight of his front foot. The music kind of falters to a stop. And he says, "This prevents us from hearing. This is not a gift. What do you bring to lay before me?"
What do you want? Jaren like speak up suddenly.
Do you not know me? I am Belorion.
Darian's eyes just like dart over to like Ingvarad and like go wide. Like, what?
When I came to this place, I was much the same as the rest of my pack. It was here that I was awoken, that I found my mind swell with thought, with reason. Belorion has taken this body. I am your god. What gift do you bring?
Who had the lantern, the sun lantern?
I have it.
I would proffer to Ingvarad. The lantern. Bring it forth.
This cannot be Belorion. You would not choose such a shape.
We must not. We do not know what yet we deal with. We do not want to provoke. We are at disadvantage here, Ingvarad.
A god would not debase himself like this to become a corpse eater.
How far away from us is this thing?
The edge of your group to where he now stands is probably 40 feet.
While the other two are talking, I'm going to reach into my pocket and pull out the one vial of ether that I have from amongst the first of the ether that we got, and just kind of hold it up, hopefully in the line of sight of this thing. See if it has any reaction. And I'm not really holding it up like, hey, God, here's an offering. It's more like, hey, demon dog bear thing, here's a treat, is this interesting to you?
Once again, whenever you reach for this vial, the Carnage Hounds that surround you again emit that kind of low growl. This time, it doesn't go unchecked by him. Instead, it calls his attention towards you. His head kind of shifts, the weight of the skull more kind of carrying it until it looks towards you. These blue glowing eye sockets kind of narrowing towards you. And it lifts its muzzle kind of up in the air, its muzzle up, and kind of almost makes like it's sniffing the air. You have a gift.
I do. And I'm going to... Just got to check the range. I'm going to slowly walk forward. In my left hand, the crossbow is sort of down, not pointing at the ground. In my right hand is the vial of aether. I'm holding it out, and I'm just going to start walking forward towards this thing. If it allows me to, I'm going to move 10 feet closer to it.
It does allow it, and it meets you halfway.
That's not what I wanted. So I'm just going to roll with it. So is it like completely closing the distance to me?
It is closing the distance.
Before it gets to me, then I'm going to, some of the shadow will coalesce around, almost like a spectral black shadow hand around the vial of aether. And then it will leave my hand as I cast Mage Hand to move it towards this thing.
It kind of regards this thing with a tilt of its head as it's approaching it. You call upon the shadow, and it answers you.
The shadow and I are one.
The shadow and the light seem opposite, but you cannot have one without the other. He kind of opens his maw and takes this shadow hand and the vial into his skull and tosses his head back. And you watch as the vial kind of tumbles down this ether that's kind of collected amongst these bones and kind of disappears into the glowing light. Your gift pleases me. I will allow you to pass. You should not tarry. Do what you have come to do, and leave us to our feast.
I think we can do that. And I sort of look back at everybody, and I just kind of look at Ingvarad with this, like, just a huge grin of, I think I just did something good.
Ingvarad is like seething at this situation that this thing thinks it's a god. And so like, although like this has gone well, you know, sort of like safety-wise speaking, she's still like furious at the blasphemy being like blatantly shown, and that this thing is like posing as Belorion, and yet would let us go and harvest his bones. Like none of it makes sense, and so she thinks it's a bad thing and must be destroyed. And so she's like trying to keep herself together and like is breathing slowly.
Can I make an insight check to see if I can read these on Ingvarad, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Because I feel like if I read any kind of negativity, it's going to change how I approach this.
Sure thing. How carefully guarded is Ingvarad with this?
I think she thinks she's being very guarded, but probably is like literally scowling. You know, I think like it's so much for her to try and deal with.
Okay. All right, so go ahead and roll, Jake.
That is a nat 20 on the die for a 22 total insight.
I would say without a doubt.
So
you've probably received this look from Ingvarad more than once. Yeah.
So I imagine that as I turn and I'm looking at everybody, and then Ingvarad like, hey, guys, I did it. While you were bickering, I gave it a thing and we're good. And I see Ingvarad, and my smile falters as I just see Ingvarad seething. And I see just that conflict. And I think you would see that expression like mirrored in my face. And I just picture this in slow motion as I turn my head back. The smile faltered, gone completely, and I turn my head back over my shoulder, looking at this skeletal creature. And I cast Shatter on it, focusing on the aether vial that it ingested.
All right. Everybody roll for initiative.
Which is what I was going to do originally.
And what we'll do, Jake, is we'll have your Shatter be a surprise round.
Excellent, because I rolled a 4 for initiative.
All right. All right. Arun with a 15. Ingvarad with a 16. Darium with an 18. And, okay, Bostrad and Katya, both of you roll a d6 for me, please.
4.
3.
Okay, Katya will go first. Okay. Okay, Katya, your surprise round. You are casting Shatter. What do you need from me? Kind of save.
It's going to be a con save as a sudden loud ringing thunderous noise, painfully intense, erupts from within this creature. And I just got to check because as a warlock, I'm automatically upcasting at a higher level. What are my spell level? Yeah, it's a con save DC 13.
Okay, let's see. Okay, he got a 13 on the die.
So it's a success. Let me just double check that again. It's takes 3 unfailed. It's a half save. I just got to check the damage real quick.
So yeah, you cast a spell, and though it does kind of shatter in it, you can hear some of the bones in this creature's kind of rib cage and spine crack. It sounds like maybe the glass was either already absorbed or broken up already, and it just wasn't there to be shattered.
All right. It's at second level, so it's 3d8. So
Okay.
that is 2 1s. That is 10 thunder damage.
Excellent. So yeah, even still, this thing, though it wasn't as hurt as it could have been, like I said, you hear the cracking of bone as this thing kind of makes this snarl kind of noise, a lot more akin to its the brethren of it that you've come across before. All right, that brings us to Darian.
Darian was already on edge, kind of going into this whole situation, as I'm sure everybody was. So the second that he sees Katya bring up her hands to do this, he's already like beginning to go into motion. And like he can just like feel the fury that's been radiating off from Ingvarad, and is going to like try to channel that into himself. Like she knows the gods, and if she's saying that this is not the god, then he's going to just believe it at face value, and is going to move forward. And I think you said it was 40 feet away, so I'm going to use my cunning action to dash as well, so I can close the distance, and just pull my sword and try to stab into this thing, like pry apart at the bones.
Absolutely. So yeah, you tumble forward, or just with incredible speed, lightness of foot, you move forward and swing at this thing.
All right, and that is going to be, thanks to the bless, 17.
Yes, that absolutely hits.
Alrighty, and because of my archetype, I get sneak attack no matter what. So that will be 13 piercing, as he'll just like take his sword. It'll like come out of the scabbard with a ring, and within a moment he's like on top of this thing, just throwing caution to the wind, seeing Katya act first. And we'll just like come down on its side, like thrusting the sword in through the like skeletal hide, and then just like trying to like pry the bone apart, and break it apart and snap it.
And this is a mundane weapon?
Correct. Yeah, it's just a short sword.
So you notice as you drive your blade into this thing that it doesn't take as much as you might have liked. Your blade just has a difficult time making much purchase on this bone. And though it does chip away some of the bone whenever it strikes, it's just not the same as plunging it into someone who's, well, made of meat. All right. Ingvarad, it is now your turn.
Okay. Ingvarad will channel Belorion to destroy this blaspheming thing that is certainly not her god, as far as she is concerned. And he's on my side. I rolled a crit on guiding bolt. And so Belorion is pleased. And this is going to suck for it, I think. How do you do crits, Jeremy? I know you have something special. Yeah,
so you do your maximum die result plus all of your modifiers, and then you roll and add your modifiers a second time.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, it's really, really bad with magic.
Super, super good. Yeah. So we got 24 plus 30, 37. Do I add a modifier to guiding bolt? No. So 37 radiant damage, and the next attack against it has advantage. So she calls out to Belorion, the true Belorion, the real one, and maybe even the lantern glows a little. Now whether this thing really is Belorion or not, she doesn't know, but she doesn't believe it, and her belief has like literal manifestations of power, and will blast this thing with this bolt of holy light.
As you do so, you blast into this thing. Your magic like passes through this being's like open spaces, and it recoils, and again lets out this horrendous help, like howl as it kind of throws its head back. But also these beams of light kind of shoot out from inside of this creature. You notice that the braziers on either side of Belorion reignite. Haroon, it is your turn.
Haroon would have had a look of relief for a moment when Katja had quelled this beast. But soon that was gone as this battle initiated. And he quickly, hefting his shield, moves beside her, taking a protective stance. And he'll place a hand upon Katja's shoulder. And as he does, she is imbued with heroism. Until the spell ends, she is immune to being frightened and gains temporary hit points equal to my charisma modifier every turn. So it just kind of refreshes every turn until the spell ends. So that is going to be 3 temporary hit points that refresh every turn.
There's no way she will abuse this.
So I take a protective stance. So if any attack comes at Katja, I'll definitely, just so you know, Jeremy, I will use my reaction to use my protective stance.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, so you're kind of readying that shield.
Yep.
Okay. The Carnage Hounds, whose skin and muscle on their skeletons, on their skulls, has now completely rolled back to their necks, completely exposing the skeletal structure beneath, are now making their way down these mountains of corpses that surround you, trying to close with you as quickly as they can. They're just leaping and bounding on top of these bodies, knocking them kind of everywhere, causing them to cascade down beneath the weight of them. They are not able to close with you yet, but they will next round. Meanwhile, this creature standing before you has regained its composure somewhat and lowered its head kind of close to the ground and is starting to kind of move sideways as it's kind of strafing and trying to look for a good angle, it looks like. And as it does so, you see it open its mouth and as it does so, it exhales ether, mainly out of its jaws, but you can even see that it seeps out from between its rib cages and the pelvis, just kind of all around this area. It fills a radius of 20 feet. If you are within that radius, I need you to make a Constitution saving throw, please.
How close did it get to me, Jeremy? Am I in that radius?
You were 40 feet. You closed 10. It also closed about 10. So, yeah, I would say so.
Just wanted to make sure.
Right at the edge.
That's a con save, you said?
It is. Okay, excellent. The four of you that are the closest to this thing, that are caught in this kind of cloud of ether gas, notice that wherever it touches you on your skin, it burns. Not like fire, but like a chemical burn. And you all managed to avoid the worst of it. So all of you are going to take half of 4 points. So you'll each take 2 points. So it's very mild, but no doubt that it's caustic.
Is it acidic or necrotic?
It is acidic.
Okay. Just ask because I have resistances to necrotic.
So
No.
as this thing, even the splash damage, the spillover hits me, I'm going to use a reaction. And
Okay.
as this ether sort of spews forward and some of it gets on me, I'm going to take and gesture with my hand, and I'm going to use that epithet of the one name of a Colossiah I know, Thrist-themed. And I seem to take some of the aether that's in the air, surround it with this black shadow, and shoot it back at this thing in a hellish rebuke. It needs to make a dexterity saving throw.
What DC?
Sorry, DC 13.
Okay. It failed.
So it is going to take 14 points of fire damage.
Okay. So you cast this forward, and it kind of lances out and then hits this thing with this burst of flame. And you can see that the fire does nothing to the bones of this thing. However, it does ignite all of the ether mist that's around all of you. So the same four of you that just made that saving throw, I need you to make a dexterity save, please.
Damn you, Jeremy. That's a dirty 20.
Good.
Katya has so many emotions happening right now, from pain to glee to, oh no.
Okay, so wow. All right, so everybody except for Ingvarad manages to, I don't know, see this coming, jump back a bit, something to get out of the worst of this. However, for some reason, Ingvarad, you're just caught in the worst of this. So, Ingvarad, you're going to take full damage. Everybody else will take half. Okay. Full damage is 31 points of fire.
Okay, I'm down.
Okay. So this eruption just blasts right in front of your face, almost, Katya, and it catches you and the majority of your group with it. Ingvarad just doesn't get her shield or her hand or something up in time, and this blasts her right in the face, and she crumples to the ground. Katya, is there anything else you're doing with your turn?
That was just a reaction before my turn.
Oh,
Is it my turn now?
it is actually your turn, yes.
Oh, yeah, that was just a reaction to it doing damage to me. I feel like if it's going to be my turn, then I don't know that in this rapid speed of action economy, if I would notice yet that Ingvarad has dropped. The aether is still kind of exploding around, and all I'm looking for is if this thing is still standing.
It absolutely still
In which
is.
case, I'm going to, almost like throwing a snowball, just hurl a mote of shadow at it as a bonus action, hitting it with Hexblade's Curse. And then I am going to raise the heavy crossbow, and I'm going to take a shot at it. Because this is my packed weapon, it is a magical weapon.
Okay, excellent.
So that is going to be a That's going to be a 16 to hit. I was debating if I wanted to spend a point of inspiration. It's going to be a 16 to hit.
That hits.
Okay, so that is going to do 1d10. Plus, I do extra damage because of the hex blade. So, let's see. That's 3, 6, 7, 8. 8 points of piercing damage from the crossbow.
You fire this crossbow made of shadow, and the bolt flies from it real enough. And as it does, it embeds itself into this thing's skull before the shadow dissipates and leaves a very real hole behind. It absolutely felt that. It surprised this creature, but it is still alive.
That's all I got. I'm not going to move with the protection that's being provided to me. I'm kind of utilizing that. When does those temp hit points refresh, Alan? Is that on your turn or my turn?
It's at the start of your turn.
Oh, okay. Good to know. What else? It gave me advantage on fear, right?
You are immune
Oh,
to being frightened.
Perfect. That's all I got then.
All right. As that is all unfolding, Bostrod, it's your turn.
All right, so Bastrad is standing back a bit, and kind of where he was originally standing, never moving up. And he sees this fireball just launch. Can you do that now, or?
No, I don't think so. It's all good. Sorry, I didn't want to disturb.
Okay. He'll launch. He watches the fireball just launch Ingvarad back, where she's crumpled on the ground, and he'll sprint over towards her, and immediately, like, noticing that she may be unconscious, or at least in some sort of insane damaged position, he'll cast Spare the Dying on her, just to make sure she's stable, and he'll start to try to pick her up and heft her over his shoulder, and start looking for an exit.
All right. So, looking for an exit, you realize this is going to be tough. These things had surrounded you before this ever started. It seems as if they expected trouble, or maybe hoped for it. And now it seems like they're going to capitalize on the fact that they have you surrounded. More than likely, you're going to have to punch a hole through this perimeter if you're going to be able to escape. As Bastrad kind of helps Ingvarad to her feet, Darian, it's your turn.
Yeah, Darian, seeing the cloud of aether initially, will bring his hand, his arm up to cover his mouth and nose to make sure that he doesn't breathe any of it in, not wanting to fall back into its effects. But that quickly proves to be the least of his worries when it ignites and blasts him with a fireball. But badly burned, he'll see that at this stage he's got nothing to do but try to fight and hope that his friends can help him. So he'll just charge, roll up the side of this thing, and just try to thrust his blade down into it. Not going to give up despite its ineffectiveness last time. And I swear that's a crit, natural 20.
Well done. Excellent.
So I already rolled it all up, and already halved, counting in the resistance, it'll be 19 damage.
You stab this thing about halfway up the length of its spine, just kind of driving the blade between this thing's vertebrae. And you feel a much more proper amount of resistance as you do so. And when you remove your blade, you watch as this thing's back legs tremble and start to fall to the ground to be dragged behind it as it continues to whimper with that "Help!" kind of howl. But it is still alive.
All right, and then real quick, so I have an ability, one of my racial abilities for being a human, or maybe it's one of my class abilities because I have two that do similar things. But if I hit a creature with a melee attack, it can't make opportunity attacks against me for the rest of my turn. So I'm going to use my movement now at this stage, seeing it fall and its back legs fall, knowing that there's going to be a window of opportunity to slip away. I'm going to move 30 feet back, and then I'm going to also use my cunning action to dash. If this thing ignites again or shoots a cloud, Darian wants to have no part in it. So he's going to move back away a little bit behind Bastrad, kind of posturing to help, perhaps get them a way out into the next turn.
Excellent. So I think you take the momentary lapse of this thing kind of being handicapped as you turn and back away quickly, and you pass like the whole of the group to the other side. And as you're kind of moving towards Bastrat to help, that's kind of when you notice that these other Carnage Hounds are starting to close in and tighten this circle around you. Ingvarad, it's your turn.
Make a death save.
You had Spare the Dying cast upon you.
Yeah, so you're stabilized.
Okay. Then I'm unconscious there, right?
Maybe. Does Spare the Dying bring you back to 1 hit point?
No, hold you
No,
at
you
0.
stay at 0 and stable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So you are simply unconscious as for the moment.
Yep. So she just maybe like dreaming that this thing maybe was the shape of Belorion all along, and that she had done it wrong, and that the gods can choose whatever shape they feel like, and it's not her place to decide that. But yeah, that's it.
All right. Haroon, it is your turn.
Haroon, seeing Ingvarad fall, I mean, just it takes him aback. It takes him like pretty much out of the battle, as he can only just watch as he's kind of helpless in the situation. As soon as he snaps to, he almost forgetting about Katja, he moves from her side over to Ingvarad and motions for Bastrad to just kind of lay her on the ground. As he does, he places his hands upon her. He closes his eyes and begins to mutter a prayer. When he opens them, his eyes glow bright blue with ether as he begins to push his essence into her. I'm going to use my action to use my lay on hands. I'm going to use all 20 points to restore her health. And I just say, "Come back to me, Ingvarad. Come back."
And when Bastard lays her down, he's just gonna do it with like laying her on the opposite side of him than the closest hounds.
Okay, yeah. So I'm almost seeing like your group forming kind of another circle, almost, and Ingvarad has now kind of been laid on the ground, kind of in the middle of this circle, as Haroon kneels down beside her and gives her a bit of rejuvenation, bringing her back from the edge.
Once I can see kind of like life returning to her form, I would immediately use my bonus action, and I would like raise my hand up, and it would glow bright with ether, and it would like send out this kind of it almost looked like it's forming an ether bubble as it just kind of forms around Ingvarad. I'm going to use my bonus action to cast Sanctuary. So I ward a creature against any attack. Until the spell ends, any creature who targets the warded creature with an attack or a harmful spell must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature chooses a new target or loses the attack or spell. Basically, the effect stays until the warded creature attacks or casts a spell of their own.
Excellent. So as you cast this kind of protective barrier around Ingvarad, these hounds close in. There are half a dozen of them. Each one of you on the outside is going to have at least one coming at you. So, starting on the left, Barterdom disposes you and is going to attempt to bite and then claw you. What is your AC? Oh, there we go. Oh. So the first one is going to hit. And probably hit badly. And the second one is the opposite side of the spectrum. Okay. So
With
this
that,
thing...
Jeremy,
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I'm going to go ahead and use my reaction to channel my divinity with Rebuke the Violent.
Ooh, what is that?
So I force the attacker to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the attacker takes radiant damage equal to the damage that it deals. If it succeeds, it takes half as much damage.
Okay, so it's a wisdom save?
Wisdom save. DC 13.
13. No. It's going to fail.
So whatever damage it deals, it takes just as much of that in radiant damage.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's see. Wow, that's going to... Okay. Okay. So, this thing lunges at you, Barterdom, and it kind of leaps off of the lower, like, bank of bodies, kind of sending several of them toppling away. And as it leaps through the air at you, it brings this claw down, trying to rake you, and you kind of spin out of the way of this claw as it completely misses you. However, it puts you in prime position for it to bite you. And where it bites you on your head. Its lower jaw sinking its teeth into your neck. And it bites down. You take 24 points of piercing damage. But as you do so, Harun turns and flings this spell, this divine magic in your direction. Your horn begins to glow. And as it does so, and this thing bites down, its lower jaw shatters off of its face. Okay.
Barterdom cries out in pain, just agony. This thing got deep into the flesh of his neck and may have pierced something vital.
All right. The one that closes with Harun tries to bite at him. Misses wildly. The second, however, is a hit. as this thing finds a claw around your shield and manages to kind of rake you right under the ribs for 6 points of slashing damage. The third closes with Katya, likewise attempting both a bite and a claw. The bite missing, not even coming anywhere close. The claw once again making purchase, piercing through the shadow armor that she wears, and likewise dealing 6 points of slashing. None of them can get to Ingvarad in the moment, but one of them does close with Darian, once again attempting this dual attack. The bite, once again, just not doing the trick. However, the claw, this is the round for claws, apparently. The claw rakes you, Darian, for 8 points of slashing damage. There are now 2 more remaining, so I'm going to figure out who amongst the 4 of you they're coming towards. 2. The first one is at Haroon. The second one, I'm not going to do Haroon with 3. The second one is Darian. Okay. Haroon, you've got 2 more attacks coming at you. 1 more bite. That one will land. The claw attack will as well. The bite is going to deal 9 points of piercing. The claw is going to deal 8 points of slashing. Darian, the 6th hound has closed with you. Once again, the bite goes wild, doesn't come anywhere near you. Oh my god. The claw, however, rakes down your back, crossing your spine. You're going to take 23 points of slashing damage.
The claw will pierce something deep, maybe even part of his lung, as he'll like spit up a spurt of blood and like run down his chin and down onto his chest, and he'll just like look down, confused, and fall onto the ground.
Yeah, and as much as Haroon is trying to protect Ingvarad, trying to protect Barterdom, and he's just overwhelmed. He's just being attacked from all sides, and just covered in this plate mail with a heavy thud. He slams down to his knees and he just crumples down as he loses consciousness.
Dire have the situation become. 2 of your party members have followed in suit, dropping to the floor under the weight of these vicious creatures. It is the Alpha's turn. The Alpha seems to think the situation is fairly well in hand. Gravely wounded, he retreats some distance and seems to just wait for this battle to finish itself out the way he sees it doing so. If an animal could be smug, this creature certainly is. Katya.
Bleeding my parts of my clothing torn to shreds by this other creature's attack. I'm looking away from the one that has attacked me and that I'm engaged with. And I see the Alpha moving away, the one I've marked with a Hexblade's Curse. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if I don't attack the target I'm engaged with, that provokes an opportunity attack, correct?
It does not.
It doesn't?
However, no, but if you have a target that is closed in melee with you, any ranged attack is at disadvantage.
So I just imagine this thing, it's kind of raked in, it's pressing in against me, and I'm just sort of going to lean into it, almost like shoulder checking it, at the same time kind of trying to brace myself against this one that's attacking me. And it's moving around, jostling the crossbow. But I'm going to take a shot at the alpha.
All right.
That's at disadvantage.
Yes, sir.
Can I use a point of inspiration to cancel that disadvantage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. I'm just going to do that. So that is... Oh, all right. Well, that's going to be a 12 to hit.
That actually hits.
Does it?
Yeah. Now, these things don't have a great armor class.
So, yeah, I just imagine this, I'm jostling against this thing, and it feels like I'm about to miss, and then I just move back in as I pull the trigger. The shadow coalesces into this real arrow that does not do a d20 damage. It does, what is that? Okay, so that's 2 plus 3 plus 2, so 7 points of piercing damage, magical.
Katya, how do you kill this thing?
Ooh. So as this shadow coalesces into the arrow gains full solidity as a fully magical corporeal arrow or crossbow bolt. Just as this alpha skeletal hound turns, kind of surveying from where it had this, as you said, smug look. And I imagine it goes right through that glowing open nose hole. And probably the first half dozen or so vertebrae shatter as it just rakes along the spine from the inside, just tish, 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 tish. And that shadow mark that I had cursed it with releases from it and flies back towards me, and I will regain 7 hit points because it has died.
So, yeah, as it dies, the dark mark that you've put on this thing does return to you, but it pulls behind it this kind of tether of ether. And it's all absorbed into you. But that's not the only tether that kind of goes out away from this creature. It connects with all of these other carnage hounds. And as it kind of touches them, you almost see this, almost like a shockwave. So like the light of this ether kind of travels towards these creatures, hits, and then travels back along the same path back to this thing as it's collapsing apart. And as it does so, all 6 of these carnage hounds start squealing and acting like there's a high-pitched noise in their dogs. That kind of response, almost like they're receiving this intense mental spike, and they are howling and screeching, "Help! Help!" And they turn and they run from all of you. Any of you who wishes to do so may make an attack of opportunity.
I'm going to level my crossbow at the one that was attacking me as it turns tail and runs for 14.
It is a hit, yes.
Um,
7 points of damage.
What was that, Lloyd?
Yeah, I had rolled with the intent of hitting the alpha, but he's dead. So I used the guiding bolt and my inspiration to roll with advantage, and I got a crit, and I did 61 points of damage. So I'm gonna explode one of them, hopefully on the way away. Maybe with fury. I also spent a second level spell slot to max out how much I could do. So like seeing the destruction all around, she'll like incant once again Belorion's name, and maybe there's like this very bright sort of shining light that comes from the lantern into their hand as she like points it towards one of these things as they flee.
And Katya puts a crossbow bolt in the ass of one as it's making its way away from you. And Ingvarad, you round on one of the stragglers, one of the last to leave. And just as it's kind of making its way up one of these mountains of corpses, you hit it with this spell, and it incinerates. It just burns to ash and then collapses under its own weight right in front of you.
Yeah, she's like roaring, and there's sort of that bonekin like beast aspect, I think, is coming to the fore, like how dire the situation is, and she's kind of like just frustratedly roaring.
And I think there's probably several long moments as each of you kind of wheels around from one direction to the other, knowing that the ones that you could see had run, but it takes you a second to piece together that the rest of them have also turned and fled. And now you understand that the battle is finished, and that though some of you are very badly hurt,
Bastarad is
over.
bleeding profusely from his neck, and with one hand kind of pushed up against it, and the other kind of the other side of his neck shoved up against his shoulder. He'll run over to whichever of the nearest companions is still downed, casting Spare the Dying again, and then moving on to the other, probably Haroon, then Darian, just based on distance, but almost ignoring his own bleeding wounds as he lays his hands on his companions, kind of frantically running from one to the other.
Yeah, and seeing that Bastarad has that under control and is like stabilizing them so they won't pass, Ingrid will begin the long incantation to cast Prayer of Healing.
Honestly, I don't think in all of this fray, I don't know that Katya noticed that Ingvarad ever went down. I think everything just happened so fast. So I'm not over there trying to, I don't know that anything happened. I don't know that the others, exactly what shape everybody was in. So I think in this moment, then I'm just walking up to where the shattered remains of the Alpha are and just sort of kicking at it. And maybe if, kind of nudge it with the toe of my boot. And if nothing happens, I'm going to crush the skull under my heel.
Ingrid is like too focused to be angry at anything that Katya did. It's not important right now. Like, people are dying, but there will be a stern talk.
So as field medicine is applied, heal magic, things in the moment that can get everyone back on their feet, what's the plan? Are you going to try to stay here?
Those things will be back. We should get what we came for and leave. I don't like the idea of desecrating such a beautiful piece of art, regardless of how I feel of its meaning. But there are demands laid upon us, and we should honor them.
We are in, as he like gets up, we are in no position to. We need a respite. We need to seek a refuge, bind our wounds, gather ourselves. If we head straight on, there may be more dangers ahead that we are not ready to face. We have only barely scratched the surface of this place.
The way I see it, did we not just kill the god? If that was Belorion, then I killed him.
I fear this creature was not the only one. An unwanted violence will only hurry our deaths.
In what reality do you think you can kill a god? What you can kill is us. And you nearly did.
Again.
I start to say something, and it's Darian's again that kind of makes me stop for a second. But I still look at Ingvarad. I could tell you wanted it dead.
Yes, I did, but I didn't strike at it.
But you would have.
Hugely outnumbered.
But you would have.
But I didn't. I showed
because I did it first. I mean, I didn't know it was going to burst into flame like this.
No, you didn't know. You didn't know anything. You just acted like you always do. And nearly got us all killed.
I think I'm starting to look around as she's saying this and maybe just beginning to take in the wounds, the blood stains, despite any magical healing that may have taken place. I imagine Ingvarad is just singed, since that was where you took most of the damage. Your like robes are just burned, skin still, that fresh, new, healed skin under boiled and blistered skin. And I'm just starting. It's just starting as I'm saying, but I killed it before it could kill us. We didn't die. We're all still here.
We didn't die because of the many sacrifices that were made by us trying to protect each other. You didn't care about that. You cared about this thing and the glory that you think you're getting for killing this thing. And some latent magic that poured into it. You think it's a god?
It wasn't glory. It was.
What are you doing? You're saying, I killed it. Me. Look how great I am. I killed it. Grow up, Katya. It's enough.
I killed it so it wouldn't kill us.
Maybe you think that. That's not
Do you
right.
think it would have just walked away from us because we gave it a vial of aether?
I don't know the answer to that question. I know the answer to the question, what happens if we do this now? But you didn't think. You never think. And if it wasn't for a lot of luck and a lot of sacrifice, I would be dead. And so would Haroon, and so would Darian. And then Bastra, I would have had to kill you.
That wasn't Belorion. Jeremy will speak up with surprising certainty about it. Just kind of shake his head. And that thing spoke and growled whatever it did, what it did. Nothing happened. The moment that Ingvarad prayed and sent that first blast, to point over to the lit braziers now. Those were not lit before. They did not light when that creature spoke, nor did they light when that creature attacked, or said anything, or did anything. Yet the moment that Ingvarad whispered her words of prayer is when they lit. That was no god.
If it was Belorion, we would all be dust.
Perhaps it is a piece, a remnant, a Belorion. If those braziers are lit now that the creature is gone, perhaps the essence that infused that creature has returned, as he points back to the god, has returned. But this is a small fraction. If this catastrophe that has fallen Belorion has spread out to more creatures, more of these remnants, perhaps destroying them will return glory to Belorion.
Maybe.
How am I supposed to know the difference between a god made of bone and this? And I reach down and I pick up what's probably like just one section of the skull of this alpha. This is bone too, and it was threatening us. Darian tried to stab it with his sword and might as well have slapped it aside the face.
I did that after you started the battle. Once you acted, we have to act as a group, as a unit. We have to work as one thing. We have to fight as one thing. If you start the attack, we have to follow. If we don't, we all die. That's how battle works. If our tactics are split, if our decisions are split, we're doomed from the start. So if you start a fight, I will follow you into that fight. I will fight for you, for me, for Ingvarad, for all of us. But that doesn't mean I agree that with you starting the fight, that I think it was a good idea. Like you say, you don't know if it was a god or not. What if it was?
I killed
These
it.
small
Doesn't
burns
matter.
and bites.
It's dead.
What
God
if it
or
was
no?
stronger? What if it was stronger? No, that I don't think you understand this. What if it was stronger? You had no idea what it was capable of, what it could do. We're lucky that we killed it. In retrospect, maybe it's good that we did. I'm sure that it's better off with that thing being dead. But the results don't excuse a bad decision, and that was a bad decision.
I wanted it dead, Katya. That's true.
I
But
know you did.
everything that I want. I am not a child. Just because I want something doesn't mean that I immediately take it. You have to think about these things. You cannot just blindly follow
I'm
every.
going to interrupt you because as you call her a child, she's going to do a very childish thing. And it's just that this is coming from the father of a 16-year-old girl. This is a very just, you don't even understand. And I literally just, I look up and I think it would actually come, you see, as I scream, my eyes turn instantly to that black ink. And just a single eldritch blast shoots out of my eyes straight up into the ceiling or sky or whatever. Just in the pure frustration, because I've still got this armor of shadows up. You know, I'm still being affected by this shadow. And it's just that pure teenage, fine. From now on, I'll ask permission before I shoot anything or kill anything.
Bastrad will step fairly close to Katya and he'll say, Katya, you showed great wisdom when you offered that thing, ether. That was a good idea. But you must temper that wisdom and that confidence with some amount of patience. Watch us.
That was patience. I knew the aether would explode. That was my... Never mind.
Let's save the tactics talk for later. We don't have time.
Suddenly, the light that had ignited during this combat is snuffed out. Ingvarad, you are the only one who sees what causes this to happen. The shadow that left Katya took form and flew directly at these flames and put them both out.
All this like shouting is happening, and everyone's like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." And I think like Ingvarad just like drops the hammer in shock, like shakes her head slowly. What did you do, Katya, just now?
What? So now the light's my fault too?
Something left you.
That's it. The shadow. I mean, do I still have the shadow armor up, Jeremy?
Yeah, if you want it to be.
Okay. It's the same as it's been.
Did you do that? Did you put those flames out? Did you do that?
You know what? Yeah. Yes.
You're a bad liar. She's going to pick the hammer back up. You don't have control over it. It acts of its own accord.
Ingvarad, what are you talking about? What's going on?
I've been controlling it all along.
And just now, when you lost your temper,
Because you made because you made me mad. Frustrated.
you're telling me that you chose to do this, put out these sacred flames.
I don't know how I'm supposed to know what in this world is sacred and what you think is sacred. If I snuffed the flames, they're flames. But if you see them snuffed, they're sacred flames. If I step on a bone, it's a sacred bone. If I use shadow magic, it's evil because it's not your sacred light. What do you want?
I want to know that when you do something, that it's you doing it.
This is me. This is me. And I form a warhammer.
Very impressive parlor trick. Very good.
Katya, in your mind, lies.
Ingvarad, how do you know that this is a Colossiah, that this is a god, that this is a sanctified thing? How do we know that it's this thing? And it's not just, you just make it that way because you believe it to be so.
She like looks up at this like impossibly large statue? We don't know. But I believe it. And there's evidence through the things that I do and the things that Haroon does, Basterad, whether he wants it to be evidence or not. That power comes from a place. All power comes from a place. But when I use my power, I know where it's going, and I know what it's going to do. Have you ever seen me get angry and glow? Or my voice change? Or it control me in any way, ever, once? Have you seen that?
It glowed pretty dang bright when you launched your attacks.
Do you think it's ever changed, affected my control, my mood, the way that I speak to you or anyone? Do I ever seem as if I am not in total control of what I am doing? Does Haroon?
I just shrug. And I suppose that's I'm the dick because I don't have control. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that it's dangerous. That your power comes from somewhere and we don't know where it comes from. We don't know what it's doing, what it wants. And I know that you're lying to me. You are like family to me, Katya. And I'm worried about you.
I don't understand what I'm supposed to be lying about.
This power does things that you don't want it to, that you don't ask it to. You're pretending like you are always in control and like you know what it's doing and that you are doing these things when that's not the case. I've known you too long and I've seen you lie too many times to be fooled by it.
Okay. You're only partially right. You're right. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what it was when I first found it in the Down Under. But you're wrong if you think that it's doing things that I don't want it to do. I like this. And I sort of just, actually with a deliberate flourish, I like this. And the Warhammer just vanishes into that black smoke. I hold my hand up so you can see the black. I'm just looking at it. The smoke just curling up off of my hand. It protects me. It keeps me alive. It gives me the power to do the things that I've been doing.
You mean the power that knocked Kalp down when we fought the Kalendari, that almost killed him? The power that almost blew us all to hell right now from flames? Every time you use your powers, you're protected and we all die.
You're blaming
You like
me
that?
because that thing was full of ether and exploded?
There's always an excuse. You want power for its own sake. Is that a lie?
I don't know what I want. But I know that I like this.
Look,
How
as
is
somewhat
this
of an
any different than
expert,
your God?
as somewhat of an expert on messing with dangerous things, I liked ether. I liked it a lot. It did a lot for me. And it almost killed me. It killed my friends. How many of them have died from people trying to get it from them, from taking too much, from turning into terrible creatures? You saw that. And he goes to bring up the Bonekin, the sister of Barterdom, but he can't bring himself to say it. Sometimes things that make you stronger, that make you feel good, that bring you a rush, a thrill of power, of life. Sometimes things we like aren't good for us. Sometimes they make us bad people. They make us do bad things. They kill us. They kill our friends. I don't care how strong it makes you feel. What rush it gives you, the power. Trust me, I know what that's like. And it did nothing but bad for me in the long run. And that was ether, not dark sorcery or whatever it is that you do. I won't even pretend to know. I don't know what it is or what it can do. Just please be careful. That's all. That's all. I don't know what Ingvarad's trying to say. I'm not going to speak for her or for anybody else. But speaking for me, please. I don't want to die, and I don't want you to die. And this can do some pretty cool stuff. I've seen it. It's helped, but it's also hurt. And I think some acknowledgement that it's not all good might help a little bit. It would at least ease my mind and Ingvarad's mind. Just to acknowledge that this is scary. Is that so much to ask? It's cool. It's strong. Good. I hope it can help us. But it's also scary. At least I'm scared of it. I'm not afraid to say that.
The whole time you're talking to me, my teeth, you can almost hear them grinding. But you can also see that while I'm listening, I'm also just waiting for you to be done talking. I'm not an aether junkie. And Ingvarad, you would probably be the only one here who would know this, that my father was an aether junkie. And I hate that about him. That's why I've been so standoffish about the aether. And when I say that, I don't really storm off, but I turn and I start to walk away. I imagine I only get about maybe 10 or 15 feet before I realize I'm completely surrounded by dead bodies and the real true. I think it only takes about 10 or 15 feet to remember the situation we're in. And again, out of frustration, but this time a little more measured, I just sort of, and I kick at a piece of debris. I don't even know what it is. I just sort of kick it out of the way. And I turn and I look at all of you. And I just go like this. With it, just that kind of, see? And just dissipate completely the armor of shadows. My eyes go clear again. And then I just stand there because I can't really go anywhere.
Look, I'm sorry. I know sometimes it can feel like we're all ganging up on the young one, and I don't mean that as an insult, and I'm not trying to be condescending. Right now, after all that's happened to me in my life, you guys, for how much that we've known each other, you guys are all I have. And if we die for each other out here, he'll just kind of shrug. We're talking about this because we care, because we want to help each other. We want to make sure that we're going to be okay. Because if we don't, nobody else will. We have to look out for each other. That's just all we can do. I hope that whatever you have, that you do control it genuinely. I'm being serious now. Because we'll need you if we're going to survive. You need us just as much. We just can't forget that, no matter what the arguments are, no matter what all this is, gods or no, shadow magic, whatever. Please.
I look around as you're talking. I look around and I start to see, probably for the first time, I look at the faces of the dead around us. Everywhere I turn, I see dead elves. But everywhere I turn, I see Kalp. As I start to almost start to have this, well, frightened little girl look. And then I look back at you, Darian. And then kind of also eyes flicking in that very just quickly back and forth to Ingvarad, almost afraid to meet her gaze, knowing she's still angry. You can see the wetness in my eyes. He was gonna help me. Kalp was gonna help me control it. And now he's dead. And I just stand there, just kind of like not even sure what to do with my hands, and the tears are just now flowing.
Yeah, Ingrad's going to walk over and just give Katya a hug.
I'm stiff at first, almost pushing away.
Ingvad is way stronger. Has like gone through this many times, and so as she feels you kind of like sulk crying, she's just gonna a little bit tighter.
And at that, you feel every ounce of resistance collapse, every defense mechanism. I think things that I've been holding onto since before all of us met. Things with my father, things that I saw in the Down Under, things that nobody knows about, just everything just sort of hits at once. And I just collapse into the full embrace of Ingvarad and face buried in it's just sobbing.
Bastarad's mind runs to when Vidaris was little, and when he was so full of anger and distant that he was never there, and this sort of paternal instinct kicks in for him, and he walks over to Katya and Ingvarad, and he kind of tries to sort of wrap his arm around Katya as well. He says, I know this will be hard, but you won't be alone. We'll be here.
The five of you make your peace, at least for the time being. Then you press on. You make your way through the valleys of these hills of elven corpses, eventually arriving at the cathedral that served Belorion. A massive, sprawling complex. As you enter the courtyard where this cathedral stands facing, you have to slow because you're having to step over and through layers upon layers of elven corpses. You finally reach the stairs of the church, which looks as though it has been somewhat clear by the tumultuous landing of this once floating city. You mount the stairs. You cross up to these very large, iron-bound, decorative, carved wooden doors. You press against them, but they do not open. These doors have been barred and locked from the inside, with their followers steps away outside of them. And that is where we're going to stop. First of all, thank you very, very much. Lloyd, Jeff, Jake, each of you please take a point of inspiration for that fantastically tense, butt-clenching scene. It was fantastic. Yeah, I don't know what more to say about it. Okay, yeah, that's all I have for this evening. So we'll go ahead and call it a night. I'm going to pass things over to my players so that they can say goodnight, plug what they want, etc. And then we'll put a bow on it. So first up, Alan.
Yes. So it's always sad that these sessions are only once a month, but I always have a great time. I love this game for the drama, the RP. Combat's always fun, but it's such rich detail between the characters that obviously you can just tell from session to session. It just focuses more on the drama in the party versus the drama, outside, like combat or any of that stuff. So had a blast, and can't wait till the next one.
Yes, I agree. These characters are the shit that they have going on is very, very real, even though the world that they live in may not be. So it's really, really fun to kind of watch this unfold. And the fact that you guys can just bring your A game every single time is a joy. So thank you. All right. Next up, we have Jeff.
I've played in a fair number of games at this point, and it's rare that when you can get into these sorts of like character scenes that you can like genuinely feel like in a real way what's happening in the game, in the scene. It's because of kind of like the artifice of the game can make it difficult sometimes to like really delve into that. But every once in a while, you get a group and characters and a game that like just really allows for a sort of unique openness and depth to like the interaction and like the emotional energy. And like I genuinely felt like what I was saying in the last half of this session and like what was happening, like it felt just as much to me as it did to Darian as a character. And the fact that this game can do that, and not only this one time but consistently, is pretty amazing. Like it's a cool thing that we have going here. I just feel like that needs to be said.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I can sit back and not say anything for 30 minutes, and I don't feel I don't feel like I'm losing out. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I love watching you guys work, so it's a joy. All right, next up we have Lloyd.
Yeah, you know how I am with backslappery, but like this one's worth it. Super good. Like felt like I was going to cry, which is like very unusual for me, even when I'm like actually sad in my real life. Yeah, just fucking great. It feels like the characters have really deep bonds, and like that's not just shown when we're role playing, but also like mechanically we make like bad decisions sometimes to save each other, which I think is like great. It like really feels like they really care about each other, and that they all have lots of problems, and like there's a really good sort of contrast between those two, where it's like, well, you just let me look after you, you know, which is great. So yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah, I think adventurers are kind of inherently broken people. I think you have to be a little bit to decide to go into the darkest, deepest parts that no one else will go and try to make a name and or money for yourself. It's kind of a little bit of a sadistic angle. So, and obviously, as you know, as a role player, as an actor, playing broken people is probably one of the best experiences. They feel so much more rounded, so much more realistic, because a lot of us have things in real life that we're dealing with, and sometimes it rears its ugly head. So to see characters that do that, and you guys not only do so, but also do so consistently, and it all makes sense within context of what's going on and amongst one another is always, well, it's a joy. All right, next up we have Austin.
It is always just such a blast to play with you guys. It's one of those experiences that makes you, just want to push yourself to be better. The amount of speechery that was just mind-blowingly awesome from Jake, Lloyd, and Jeff tonight was off the charts. Just, I felt Darian's emotion, and I was like right there with him. And I think it's just so much fun getting to play such a kind of conflicted character too. And every time that I just have to say I love the little prompts that Jeremy gives us for those moments. And it's so much fun watching the other players just like immediately run with them. There's no like hesitation or resistance. There's just this sense of like, okay, now this is the new thing and we're going with it. And it's just so much fun to watch. I think like Katya's response to that voice in her head was just so good. And it's just so great to see everybody like reacting so naturally in their characters. Yeah, so I had a ton of fun. It's nice to get to like have that fun duality of like that. I still just love getting to play the angry guy trying to hold it in, because it gives you those like there's a reason to like be with everybody and care. And I didn't even know, like when Ingrid went down, my immediate reaction was like, okay, I'm gonna put myself in between her and whatever's like out there. Like she's a better parent to my daughter than I am, so she's getting back if I'm not. Like and it's so great to just have those immediate like snap reactions about the character you're playing, because it makes the world feel so much more real. So thank you all very much.
Absolutely. And again, that comes from having characters who are consistent and well thought out. You guys have these motivations and goals that are on your sleeve, and you understand them. You guys know your characters so very well, and it shows. All right. Last but certainly not least, Jake.
This was I've played with everybody in this game in some capacity or another in different games. Some of us have played together a lot. Some of us have played together a couple of times. But I had that experience. But I've never had this experience. This is probably the most visceral RP that I have had as a player. And it never feels forced. with any of the characters. It feels like everything comes organic. I mean, we don't sit there and go, okay, here's what's going to happen. Lloyd, I'm going to piss you off, and then you're going to react to it. And Jeff, you jump in on it. Alan and Austin, you just find the moments to jump in. Because so much of what happened was based on decisions that were made in the moment, in character. And for me, anyway, for that, I don't even know how long it was, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it was. The game melted away. And all that there was the five of us standing in amongst all of these corpses. It's one of the most real experiences I've had in a game that made it so easy to tap into some of that stuff. But then you start thinking, kind of in while everybody's talking here at the end, we always think about these kind of games in terms of the mechanics. When do you level up? When do I get new abilities? When do I get new spells and mechanical things that I can do? This was one of those sessions where I think for more than just Katya, because I think there was, I don't want that last scene to overshadow, there was some really good interaction with Darian and Ingvarad on the discussion of religion. Darian seems to be opening up. And I think that showed even in this last session or this last part of the session where it seemed almost like Darian was almost ministering to Katya in a way, kind of wielding a newfound power that he doesn't even know about. But so it was, for me, this is one of those things that I think for at least in particular, I can see for Darian and Katya, but also I don't want to downplay the others as well, having near-death experiences, role play things that happened, story beats that happened, have created these pivots or dramatic changes in our arc going forward. I'm not going to be able to play Katya in the same way that I've been playing her after tonight, because I think as a character, she's maturing because of the things that happened. I think Darian is maturing and changing his way of thinking.
Uh-oh.
Wonder if it's one of those situations where he was going to say one more word, thinking. That was going to be it. Oh,
Okay. All I was saying was, Jeff said it in the beginning, in the side chat, that you don't get to witness miraculous healing and not have it affect you. And we're letting those elements affect our characters, where in other games you don't necessarily see that. It's like, oh, we just killed some bad guys, let's take a rest, spend some hit dice. And I'm not downplaying those games are great too, but for this, that's what I love about this. That's what I love about this group, this dynamic that we've all established. I feel lucky to have all of you to be able to play these characters off of each other in the way that we are. So before I cut out again, I'll shut up.
Yeah, the chemistry in this group it's just on fire. And I really, really love the fact that you guys allow so much room for each other to react and respond and you, like you said, change, grow based on what's happening around you and what each other are actually saying. It feels realistic. You're responding to one another instead of just kind of, one-liners and whatnot. So, yeah.
Can I say one other thing? Just one last thing. I meant to say this earlier, but it is so much fun checking in with Jeremy's face every once in a while when people are deep in conversation and just seeing the semi-maniacal laughter and just the look of devious glee and oh yes, these people are going to tear each other apart, and it is so much fun to watch. So just so you know, every time a conversation goes on for a few minutes, I always check in just to make sure let's see, how's Jeremy reacting to this? Oh yeah, he's loving it. Good. This is going to be good fodder for later.
He does the same thing as a player. I watch him every Thursday. I watch Jeremy's reactions, and
I found very early on that the more responsive I am to what's going on, the more immersion I get out of the game. So I just throw it all to the wind and just
it's infectious. It's infectious, man.
I love it. But I also tend to keep pictures up so that way it's not it's not constant. But yes, yeah. Thank you guys so much. This is a wonderful, wonderful game. I cannot wait until next month to reveal the rest of what's going on and to see what you guys are going to do with it. So thank you very much for anybody who may have watched this evening. Thank you very much if you're watching in the future as well. And until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.